All right. So the one question that we do have is was talked about how to grade quizzes on like paragraphs or short answer. And so when you're doing your quiz, so let me go into quizzes real quick. Actually, we are just going to look for a quiz. All of my blank quizzes, that's good. Okay, so when I've got a blank quiz going on, um, when we run into where like how do you grade like this long answer text here, so the stuff that we don't have, we have to go in and manually grade. How do we do that? So let me get rid of some of this stuff so that we don't have to go through so much. Okay, so we'll do a quick, and you can actually, I'll share it with you guys too, so you can, so in the chat, I'll drop the quiz so you guys can fill it out should you want to. So go ahead, fill it out. I'm gonna do the preview part of it so that we get that. Obviously, our first name, last name, that is mandatory and it's not graded. I'm gonna go through and all right, I'm not going to answer everything correctly so that we can go in and do some different things. So now what happens is when I go in and view my score, it's going to tell me I got 0 out of 20 and why. And so it's because my final score release is pending. And so I'm going to go back to my blank quiz or my quiz, and I'm going to look at my responses. And this is where if I need to do individual grading, or individual question grading, I needed to go question by question. And so this one, like I have an ungraded response on each of these names, and that's because we are, that's because you can't, you can't grade on the name, if that makes sense. I mean, there's nothing to grade on that. So you go question by question, and so we can go down and look at, so I go back to my questions. So this is so here I can look at this one. There's no points on this one, so I can leave these alone. This is fine. The next one is the last name, same deal. This one I can go through. I could add feedback if I wanted to. Now I'm going to keep on going. Now here, like this one, I didn't get it all right. And so what I can do here is I can give 5 or like 3 points on this one because we got part of it right. So I can give partial points. This one, I'm going to give partial points. And this is where I would add feedback to, and I would say, red is needed to make orange, not blue, or something like that. So to kind of help. And then so each question that has individual questions needs, or individual, like this one where we could have, you have to select as many as possible, or as many that make it right. This one I can give partial for, so I can save. And so once I go at the bottom, I can save my edits. I'm going to keep rolling. So this is one that has no, I can go in and edit this, like say I want to give feedback, or I want to say you know, something I can do that. So here, oops, this isn't the one I want. This one. So what are the presidents? Oh, look at you. So good. So I'll give you all 5 on that one, and I'll say it's correct. This one I'm going to give you 2 because we've missed a couple. Um, and so I can give points, and then it's like this one I'm going to give 0 because I have no idea, and this one I gave 0. So I can go through and just, it's on the question, so you have to be on the question, and then you can cycle through each question and run down. The nice thing with this is I can't see who gave each answer, and so I don't really end up with that, you know, oh, of course, you know, so-and-so is always going to do a really great job. I don't have any of that preconceived bias because I don't know who's filled them out. So now yeah.
Can I cut in for a second?
Yep.
So if I, on my quiz, like I like doing the jumbled questions choice. That way, you know, if they're sitting by somebody, they're not on the same question. When I go to my responses, so how does that work if they all had questions in different order? Is it just the order that I made the questions in?
I believe so. That's a great question, and I haven't futzed with that one. So I don't know, but I will test that out and I will get back to you on that one, okay? Because the question should, when the students get them in different, the only thing that I've seen where if you do the jumble is if you're doing, like if you get this answer right and you go to this answer, you know, you go to this question, if you get this answer wrong, you go to the other question. That I've seen will mess things up, but otherwise, but I will look into that and I will add a response into the Google Classroom, okay? Yeah.
We have some students who have taken tests with Kia, and so they're used to that sense of this is what you have now, but this is what your potential is. So they're used to the fact that essay questions have to be graded by an instructor, or write-in questions have to be. So when they look at scores, they don't get quite as freaked out.
Okay. And so, and that's one of the things where I know when when you're doing this, you know, you'll notice when you have that and you get those responses back that, you know, yeah, you don't have everything. So now that I've done.
Julie, can I step in here a little bit on Katie's question?
Yeah.
I think because I'm talking about LaDonna, when LaDonna told me about that, she always mixes them up, and she questions. It's how she put them in. I'm pretty sure it's how she put, like you said, how you put it in.
Yeah.
You put it in. Then that's how their questions are brought back to you, I think.
Well, and that it should be how they're brought back to you, because I mean, you're answering the questions are all technically the same. You know, I mean, the questions are all the order you put them in, and so it should, because they come back in that order.
Right.
So I'm going to go through and I'm going to release the scores here. So then to go to the end, so I've gone through on the questions to do the individual grading, and it's just gonna, so like if I had 30 kids that responded, I would have you know, 30 responses, unless, you know, when we go back, let's see, when we go back to like this one, I don't think I have points on this one, and so this is my own fault. I should have deleted it. So yeah, this one is not good. Sorry, guys. But so if we're looking at this one, don't look at this one. But like this one, it'll come through. It shows me that I got 3 responses that said 2, you know, and so I can see that. And then I can see that I got 1 response. And so as I'm flipping through question by question, I can see kind of what percentage. When we get to this kind of a question where it's more fill in the blank or short paragraph, you're not going to have that duplication, hopefully. But if you do, then you're like, oh, somebody copied and pasted somebody, or you copied and pasted from the same site. So Good times. All right. Going back to releasing then. So I've gone through, I've graded on the question tab to send the final scores out. I click on the release score. And at this point, I can either say all respondents or just me. And so I'm going to say all respondents, and I'm not sure where.
Julie, can students, can they not complete this quiz and still have it handed in essentially?
No, I mean, well, that's going to be your setup. And so if you have stuff that's not mandatory, then they can submit. But if I go down and have something be mandatory, when I go to submit it, it'll say I can't submit it. And so as long as you have those required questions, a student cannot submit the quiz unless they've answered those questions. Does that make sense?
I just have a
Yes,
quick
that
question.
makes sense.
Okay.
Sorry, Deb. I was just curious about bonus questions. Like, so if I wanted to put a bonus in there, do I make it worth 0, and then if they get it right, it's worth a point, or do I just have to make it not required and go to that one and manually add in a point?
So the bonus quiz, so when we're setting up a quiz, so I'm gonna go back out of my quiz real quick. And we'll look at just making a quiz. When I'm making a quiz, if I want it, so I need to obviously so this comes up, and by default it is not a quiz, and so I'm going to make it a quiz, save it. So here's my first question. It's required, and I'm going to say 2 + 2, and then I'm going to throw in my options here, 3, 4, 1. I'm going to go to my answer key, which is like flipping the card over. I'm going to choose my correct answer, and so it's 4. I could add feedback, and I have 5 points there. All right, I'm going to say done. This one's required. They have to do this one. I'm going to duplicate this just because it's just easy. Now my next one is going to be my bonus question. What is 2 times 2? And so this one, I'm going to say it's not required, so that because it's bonus, they don't have to, you don't have to do that one. I can go back to my answer key. It's because I duplicated it and the answer is the same. I can say 4. And we're good. And so if you're looking at bonus, this would still grade it, but they don't have to answer this one if they don't want to. Okay. If they need to answer it, use the required. If they don't need to answer it, use the non-required. And so when I'm filling out forms or quizzes, a lot of times I will, have this is required, but then I'll ask for feedback or questions or, stuff like that. And that will be something that I don't make it be required. I'll say that's like, even when I do you guys's feedback form, it's like, answer this question, but what other questions do you have? That I don't make it mandatory, because then you end up with a lot of NAs and that kind of stuff. So it just depends on how you're doing it, but the mandatory, non-mandatory. The other thing that's really nice is we've been doing a lot, and I think we talked about this. I've been doing so many Google Classroom trainings that it's like, I had to go back and double check and see what all we talked about. But as a lot of teachers you can use Google Forms as a way to force the kids. I mean, obviously you can't force anybody to do anything, but if you want them to watch a video, you can insert the video. And so if I do a video, I can insert a video, and then now I can add questions after the video. And I can say, you know, what's the main point? You know, we can go through and have these be required questions. And so the students can answer a series of questions following the video, which gives you a little bit more control in terms of having, you know, making sure they watch the video. And so, I mean, obviously a lot of teachers are using Edpuzzle. You have options, but this is another option. Okay, does that help with the quizzes questions?
Yes, thank you.
Pam, sort of.
I embedded the quizzes. I made it like a check concept, like I would have a lecture, and then I used the quizzes and I embedded well, not a quiz, but just a Google form into it that they went to, and they had to answer the questions on it, so I can get quick formative assess. You know, like are they paying attention and stuff like that.
So same deal with
Same thing,
with the video.
except right. But I made it, but they had it was required, but I didn't call it a quiz. It was a required thing for them to do.
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't have to call it a quiz. I mean, it's
Right.
just the video, you know, I mean, here's the video and watch the video and answer the questions. I mean, it's just,
right.
Mm-hmm.
Or listen to the presentation and check up. I mean, did you pay attention? You know, that type of thing.
Right. And that is, I mean, and that's one of the nice things is the video is here and the questions are here. So everything is all in one spot. And so that's how they could access it and everything. All right.
So when you release those scores, do the students just see the score or do they see the actual questions and answers?
That is part of your settings. So if we go back, so on this one, when I went through, you know, when you do your settings and you do your quizzes, you can do all of these. You can say immediately after each submission when you release the grade or later after manual review. If we do the immediately after each submission and there needs to be manual review, that's when you're going to get those, you know, that question of, you know, you have, you know, you scored 15 points, but that's not final, or, you know, that type of thing. If you do later, they don't get the instant score. They just get a, you know, it's been turned on or it's been submitted. Respondents can see, here's where we can turn on and off what they can see. And so if you want them to see missed questions, and so that'll show them what questions were answered incorrectly, what questions were answered correctly, and the point values. And so this one, see, and I closed that. I filled out this form already. So when you fill out this form, it will give you, it'll tell me the points and then it'll also show me my answers. So you'll want to decide how you want to share that, if you want it to be, if you want them to see or not see.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does manual review mean I have to click release scores?
So any time that you have done, anytime that you, yes, but even when I say it's release, so let's go back to our untitled one and let's just make this one super easy. Delete, and I'm going to delete. Okay, so I only have one question here. I am going to add in our email just so that we have that, so that. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I need to delete this too because I don't care. I don't want, well, no, I need something that's graded like this. Okay. So I've got my long answer text. I've selected this one. we're gonna do a quick demo. And now I'm gonna go to my settings. And so we'll look at our settings real quick. I'm gonna take it away to restricting to users of the K-12. I'm gonna leave this blank. I'm gonna go to my presentation, and this is where I can show the progress bar, or I could shuffle question order. And we can do that for you guys, and so you can kind of see how that turns out. And then quizzes. This is a quiz. You want to see, let's do immediately after each submission, and I'm going to show you everything, okay? And so I'm going to say save, and we will do this one so you can kind of see how it works, okay? So it's supposed to be collecting your email addresses, so let's keep our fingers crossed. So in the chat, here it comes, form number 2. All right, so go ahead and take quiz number 2, and I will do it too. This is one where I'm releasing my score immediately. However, there's something that has to be manually graded. So I'm going to say submit. And now I can see view score. And so here I see I have 0 points, and it's telling me everything, okay? So it's showing me my wrong answer, it's showing me the correct answer. So it's giving me all the info. So if I were to uncheck, if we have the missed questions, it'll show us what questions we missed. If we have those correct answers, that's where it's going to show us this correct answer here. So I could have it show me missed answers, and then it would show me this top part, but it wouldn't show me the correct answer. So I could see what I got wrong, but I couldn't see what what the correct answer was. And then like this, because it's a paragraph, I don't have anything there to see yet. So I'm going to go back to my quiz, and I've got 4 responses. Now I can go in question by question. Oops, this is the wrong quiz, sorry. I have 4 responses. Now I can go in question by question. And I can see that I got 2 are right and 2 are wrong. I'm not going to do anything with that one. I'm going to look at this question, and here I'm going to say this is correct, this is correct. Sunshine is always correct. And I'm going to give you half credit for that one. Okay, oops. All right, so now you'll notice I have the save at the bottom of the screen, and that's one of the things that kind of freaks me out a little bit, is because we don't usually have to save stuff in Google, and so you do have that save. Now when I go back to my individual, now I'm going to see that I can release scores. So when I click on that, I can click on either just one person, or I can click on all of us. So if I click on send emails and release, now your scores have all been released to you. So this could be, so this is where your settings are so important, because when you're looking at these settings, you'll want to make sure that you're, how you want to do that. So if we say immediately after each submission, you get that basic score, but if there's stuff that has to be graded, it will tell you it's not final. If you just turn on the later after manual review, it's just going to tell you that you completed the quiz, but it's not going to tell you how you did. Okay.
Now, Julie, I did notice, like when it asked for email address, the first time I just put in a first name, and it said, no, this isn't a correct format.
Mm-hmm.
And the second time, I didn't put in my correct name, but I put in @K12, and it took it.
And that's, so we can, when we're in, looking at the quiz or looking at the format, so I can go in and edit this question. So it's collecting email addresses here. The other thing you can do, because, and this is that it's kind of smart. So if I say email, I can, it's looking for an email address. And so it will be looking for that at. So it doesn't necessarily do a super job of catching if you just type in the at, and go, you know, at K-12, because that's what it's looking for. And it's just, I that's one of those things. And so I can do at, whoops. See, now it tells me it must be valid. And so did this one not tell me it had to be valid? Yeah, see, this one also tells me it has to be valid. So I'm surprised you were able to just type in your at K-12.
No, I typed in my name, but not my name according to K-12.
Oh.
So like my K-12 name is Deborah,
Yeah.
and I just put in deb.craft. So if we have kids who say, well, I didn't get my scores,
Then
it could be if they don't type in the correct
email address. Right. However, so if we set it to say you are on, no, leave. So if you do your settings to say you have to be logged into the K-12, now when we play with it, you know, notice it automatically grabs my email address. Okay. And so, and that can be something that you can really easily do when you're going in Google Classroom, because they're going to be logged into their K-12. It's not going to be a problem. And so if you're worried about student, and I would go this route. The other thing I would do is have my first name, last name, just something that they, you know, they type in partial. I mean, it's always good to practice typing our name, but it's just a lot easier when you're sorting through results. If you want to, you know, sort by last name or sort by first name, you can do that really easily. You don't have to really mess with your data. But yeah, so if you set that, do that setting to, whoops. If you do the setting to restrict to users in K-12, they have to be logged into their actual at K-12 to use it. So that could be an easier way rather than having students type in their email address. Actually be a much easier way. And so for me, it just depends on who I'm working with. Obviously, obviously I wouldn't be giving a quiz to my parents in most situations. So that's the only, you know, depending on who I'm working with will depend on what I'm doing. Awesome. We've dove into quizzes this morning like crazy. Very exciting. Other questions or comments about quizzes?
Did we find out if if we could have a question bank?
So you kind of have a question bank. Let's go back to my quiz. So if you have quizzes that you've used before, you can go in and pull questions from previous quizzes. Does that?
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Yep, and I've actually been really loving this because, I mean, obviously my K-12 is a mess because I just use it for demos. I don't use it for as much of my real work as I do in my Thai gaps. But what's awesome is when you do this, bring in questions. So over here, I clicked on this import questions. I pick my form, and then now I can go in and I can select the questions that I want to use. And so really, and it just pulls them in really easily. And this is one I was trying to do some crazy work with, and so it's not super great, but you'll see it pulls in the questions, and then you can edit or do what you want to with them. So I do that has been really, really nice. The other thing that I've used this for a lot is some of those basics. So like those things you have in every quiz. If I accidentally start with a new quiz rather than editing an old quiz, I can pull in questions that I would always ask very easily. All right, other questions about quizzes before we jump into a couple of other things? All right, so Google Meet, are you guys still planning to go with Google Meet? Okay. So since we met and we did all the stuff with Google Meet, I found an amazing, so I've been putting everything in a Wakelet. It's just easier for me to keep track of everything. There's a really great PowerPoint presentation by Susan Stewart, and she goes through all of the little nuances that are going on, like how to change your layout, some of the management tips, testing everything out. So this can be useful, like how to pin your teacher, how the different layouts work. Here's an extension if you wanted to do it, a bigger extension. The muting your microphone and the keyboard shortcuts for that, turning on and off your camera and the keyboard shortcuts for that, hanging up. And so just kind of, how to do some of the additional things. And so she also talks about teaching online a little bit, and so like using the Jamboard for both. And then she does a quick comparison of the three: Meet, Zoom, and Teams, which is nice. I love this. Isn't this what we feel like? But as we're going through, you have, she talks about how to use the Google Meet, some etiquette posters, Jamboard, which we've looked at, and kind of rolling on through. So gives you quite a few resources for Google Meet. And so that can be something you may want to dive into a little bit more as you are checking out and getting ready to go live with Google Meet. The other thing that I added in for you guys is the Thai Reads resources, because I had a lot of questions from people that were like wanting books or wanting more resources. And so in Thai Reads, if you go in, it's our professional development e-library, and we search for Google, there is a number of books available for using Google Classroom. And so one of the newer books, and it was just released, I think this summer or late this spring, is Stepping Up to Google Classroom by Alice Keeler. And it's a great book, because it just kind of goes through all the steps, and she does a really, really good job of providing those like best practices. And so I used a lot of her resources in our training. And so this one's a good one, and we have 6 copies of this. Another good one, and so she's written numerous titles, and so she's written the 50 things you can do in Google Classroom and 50 things to go further. These are older books, and so they're going to reference things like the About tab in your Google Classroom. Well, we don't have an About tab anymore. We have the classwork, and actually, I mean, things are, but the research, the processes that she shares, and the, you know, like how to do the online teaching and the things you can do, those are still valid. Same with the Google Apps for Littles. This book was written before classwork was a thing, but this one is awesome if you are teaching little kids, because it just goes through and gives all of that kind of support and guidance. And then the last one is, if you're doing anything with math, is Alice Keeler's Teaching Math with Google Apps, because that one is also a really great resource. So the Teaching Math with Google Apps. And that too was written before we have the classwork, but the processes are really good. And I would also like, because you guys are all science, I think. I don't know, maybe Deb isn't science. But I would look at this book for science too, because she does quite a bit of, you know, like how to have the kids explain their thinking and do things in an online environment where it can be harder to, like, where we typically would have worksheets, how we can have that transition. And then this Introduction to Google Classroom is a brand new book. I haven't even seen it yet. It gets released, I think, next week. And so if you want that one, you can place it on hold. So those are your options. How do you sign up? You've got that link to go ahead and sign up. It's your email address. And then once your account is created, you can sign in anytime and get those books. So those are a few additional resources. And then the last thing I shared is, so I did a session at ASBSD on best practices for teaching online. And so I just dropped this in for you guys because it's got some resources that as you're working towards moving online this school year may be beneficial for you. And so some of them are things like the building blocks of an online lesson. And so if we scroll on down, and she asked some really great questions. Are there instructions or modeling that students need to navigate a task or assignment? Should it be a video, or should it be something we do live? You know, just goes through and kind of has you think about the building blocks. And then I took this and modified it for us. And so one of the things that I really emphasize is to pick a few things and get good at them rather than trying to do all the cool things. And so trying to, like, what can you use for recording the videos? What can you use to engage the students around video content? Just kind of going through all of these things. And so lots of tool suggestions, et cetera, et cetera. And then this is something that that talks about just rethinking as you're building your content online. So instead of your long lectures, you know, can you do mini lessons? Instead of worksheets, can you do hyperdocs? Instead of feedback, can you do feed forward? And so just things to think about. She does provide a lot of social activities and things like that. So it's a really great resource to kind of make sure to reflect on a little bit as you're moving content online. All of this, as we know, I mean, this whole thing seems overwhelming. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Try to use, you know, one tool for many things, so you don't have to know so many tools, and also your learners don't need to know so many tools. We go through and talk a little bit about video, using Flipgrid Shorts, which is awesome, using Screencastify or Loom, any of the other ways you can capture screencast. Things to consider while you're making your videos, like keep it short. And then as we keep on rolling, making sure we help our learners know how to watch videos. And so Pam, you'd noted that you know, your learners need to answer questions and submit those after they watch a video or watch a lecture, just to kind of make sure they're paying attention. Cornell Notes can be a really great tool for that, because you can go in and this can be, you know, one of the things that we do is, you know, they take their notes the Cornell style. They've got that reflection, the summary at the bottom, so they can take time to do that. And then as you are, a lot of teachers I've worked with have actually had their students turn in the Cornell notes, so that, you know, that's kind of part of that. Making sure we watch a video with our students and model that starting and stopping, model that rewinding and rewatching, you know, just so that, that's an option. Sketch notes are another really great way for showing what you've learned. I personally can't do sketch notes and listen to a live presentation, but I can come back and do sketch notes when I'm done, and that is a really great way to reinforce my learning. How do we assess? And so embedding the video in YouTube like we looked at, or embed in the Google form, using the questions in classwork, Edpuzzle, Insert Learning. Lots of collaborative ideas. So we spent a lot of time looking at Jamboard when we were together. Google Slides is another option. And then how we're going to organize and communicate, and using choice. And then if you would like, you are welcome to go through and reflect on the questions as you prepare, and there is a Jamboard for each grade level that you can do a quick jam on to answer those questions. All right, so that I think is the content that I kind of wanted to share with you guys this morning, just because I knew that there's just new stuff coming out all the time, and I wanted to make sure that you had access to those resources. So any other questions or comments before we move on?
Do you have time to do just the basics of Google Meet, or do I just need to access that information?
Yeah, no, we can do the basics. Yep. Yeah, we have time. So I'm going to go back into the Google Meet. So actually, no, I still have it open. So when you go into this assignment, and if you click on this Wakelet, this very last thing, I wasn't sure how engaged people were to all these things, and so I didn't want to delete them all. They are all in the Wakelet too, but I didn't want to like break somebody, so I didn't delete them. So if we go into the Wakelet, is where this slideshow is, and it has just a lot of really good info. So I will drop the link to the slides in the chat. And so as we're looking at this, one of the things that you know, I think I emphasized a lot when I was talking about Google Meet or Google anything, is clicking on the three dots. And so when you're in a Google Meet session, you'll notice you have this toolbar at the bottom of your page. You have these three dots, and that's where you're going to end up getting to see where you can record the meeting, you can change layout, full screen, turn on captions, etc. To get your initial, like to set up your initial meeting, you need to go back to your classwork. And you're going to see, as a teacher, I've activated the link on your classwork, but I have it hidden. It's not visible to my students. Your settings in your class, so this will be something you need to do for each class, is where you can set up your Google Meet. And so here is my Google Meet. I can turn this on so that students can see it, and then it would show up, that link would show up. Truly, I would probably use my Google Meet link as a resource that I would copy and paste into an assignment, you know, like Google Meet, and then I would give it a day and a time so that we know that we're all coming together at this time. You can reset your link if you need to. You can also copy it from your settings. But once you've set it up, you can copy it from here too. So that's kind of like how you get your Google Meet. So some of the things, you know, like she gives some, you know, like how to manage your resources and stuff like that in this session. And so that's more of a management type thing. But she really encourages you to push all the buttons, and I agree. And so practicing, and I would practice this with your students, and when I do like a Teams training or any type of training, one of the things I do is I have people practice muting. I have people practice turning on and off their camera. Google Meet is one of those funny things that when you click on it, it turns red and, you know, does a line through. And so if it's clear, you're not muted. If it's got a line through it and it's red, you are muted. So rule of thumb, you know, is to, you know, keep yourself muted unless you're talking. So as the teacher, you see all of these controls. So remember the 3 dots. This is where you can change your layouts. You can do all that stuff. If you want to share your screen, you can click on the Present Now. You can see all of the people in your meeting. It gives you your turning on and off the microphone. The hang up obviously is leave meeting. And then you can share your meeting details with guests. Remember that the settings for Google Meet are only people with K-12 emails can join. And so if your student is on a mobile device and it's, you know, their parents' email address, they'll need to make sure that they switch to their K-12 to be able to join. One of the things that I would really work with your students on management is pinning the teacher so that you can that they can see the teacher and that you have kind of that you're the main speaker. And so that is the the presentation, the active speaker, or the pinned feed fills the main window. And so that would be in Spotlight. That would be how it would work when you change your layout. And so I do like that she gives us different examples of what it looks like. I think this can be helpful for our learners, and it can also be helpful for us to kind of see what looks like. Spotlight, you'll see, you know, teeny tiny in the upper right hand corner. Everybody else, you know, you see the main person, everybody else is hidden. Tiled layout, up to 16. And then there is a Meet grid view, which is an extension. And so that is something that is an add-on if you wanted to go beyond. Muting your microphone, we have the keyboard shortcuts, the turning on and off the camera, we have the keyboard shortcuts, leaving the meeting. Okay, the chat. So chat in Google is the same as chat in Zoom. And so, you know, when you join Zoom, you only see the chat from when you join. Same with Meet. And so if you, so this is where, like, if students are rolling into a session and you're like, here are the resources for today, here are the resources for today, you may feel like you're sharing it like a ton of times just because those students that join after you shared it won't see that information. She talks about how to find the emoji keyboard, and that is just a right click. And so you guys can see that too when you're in Google Classroom. Anywhere, you just right click and you can get the emoji keyboard. All right, magic 3 dots. See, I told you. 3 dots. Under the 3 dots is where you're going to see your options for turning on captions, the recording the meeting, the changing the layouts, et cetera, et cetera. And then she moves into teaching online, and, you know, just kind of the difference between the issues. So one of the things that you're going to want to make sure that your tech person, there's settings that students need to to be and teachers need to have so that students cannot create meets and students cannot, like, when you end a meet, they can't stay on. And that is one of the things that Google is working on right now, and it should be released soon. So that should be coming down the pipe. So does that help answer the Google Meet stuff, or do you still have questions?
I might have to recruit some people to do it with me so I can practice.
I think
I
that
think-
sounds really good.
Those might be the kinds of things that we can do on Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, I think that would be something that I would definitely look at doing, you know, coming up with some small groups and playing around. If you have the capability to get a student computer and use a student login, and play around with that too, I would recommend that, just because it is, it can be kind of a challenge, especially if the students have different rights than you do, to make sure, you know, you understand what they can do and what you can do, type of thing.
Julie, did I see something that that there will be the possibility that we can export grades from Google Classroom to DDN Campus?
That's going to have to be something that you talk with your building, your IT, because there's a couple of different things with that. It's an add-on, and there needs to be an exchange of money between DDN and you, or Infinite Campus in your building, or whoever, probably DDN, Infinite Campus, and you, or not you, but your building. And the other thing that I've seen is because it's an add-on, it is not technically part of Google. And so some schools will allow people to use it and some schools don't. One of the things you can do, and so while this is not a connection, I can go in, and so just so you guys know, I did drop in a bunch more resources for content areas this morning too. So you have more resources. So if I go in and look at this assignment, I have a little gear, which is not the, it's not the settings. I can copy all my grades to Google Sheets. I can download all grades as a CSV, or I can download just these grades as a CSV. So, and I don't think we've graded this. I don't know if this is a graded an assignment or not. But if I do the CSV, it's going to pull down, and I just did this assignment, but I can pull down all my assignments as a spreadsheet. And so hopefully that will help. While it's not the same, you can go in and get that content, okay? So any other questions or comments? So glad you guys came to hang out.
Thank you for your help.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week. I'm so glad you have some time to work on Google Classroom and be able to collaborate and work together. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, and otherwise have a super school year, and we'll see you.
Thank you, Julie.